Today, we're going to talk about a skill that can honestly make or break your career, being able to take solid research and turn it into really powerful, convincing writing. We'll kick things off with a story about a massive company that, well, failed to do this. And then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of how you can master this skill, all the way down to polishing up your resume.
So let's start with just a number. Over 3,500. Any guesses what that is? It's not a price, it's not a new model number. This was the number of Sears stores in the US back in 2010. Think about that. They were an absolute giant, a household name. But this number, it's really the peak right before a massive, massive fall.
And this timeline, it maps out that fall perfectly. It's like watching a slow-motion car crash. 1994, Amazon pops up, just a little online bookseller. 3 years later, Sears, with all its money and power, puts up a website, but it's clunky, it's an afterthought. Then you see that 2010 peak, just as the digital wave is about to crash over everyone. By 2017, the gap between them and their online rivals is just staggering. And then, a year later, boom, bankruptcy. A true titan that just couldn't read the writing on the wall. Now, this isn't just some business horror story to tell around the campfire. The collapse of Sears is such a powerful lesson. It's basically a perfect case study of what happens when a company completely fails to do its research, ignores the data staring them in the face, and just doesn't adapt. So, where exactly did it all go wrong? I mean, they were painfully slow to get online, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. They basically invented shopping from home with their catalogs. They didn't invest in tech, they sat on this mountain of customer data and did nothing with it, and they got obsessed with cutting costs instead of actually growing. Every single one of these mistakes boils down to a failure to listen to the evidence. Okay, so we've seen the absolute disaster that can happen when you get it wrong. Let's totally flip this around from the why to the how. How do you build the skills to avoid those kinds of mistakes? Well, it all starts with having a solid research toolkit, knowing where to find good information, and maybe even more importantly, how to tell if it's actually any good. First things first, you gotta know that not all research is created equal. You've got two main flavors. There's primary research, which is when you're making brand new info. You're running the survey, doing the interview, pulling fresh sales reports. Then there's secondary research, where you're using info that's already out there, digging through reports, articles, that kind of thing. In business, you're going to use both for sure, but knowing when to use which is half the battle. All right, now for one of my all-time favorite tools, mainly because it's so easy to remember. You found a source, but is it trustworthy? Well, it's time to put it through the CRAP test. And yes, you heard that right. C is for currency. Is this info from last week or from 10 years ago? R is for reliability. Can you verify this? Does it have sources? A is for authority. Who wrote this? Are they an expert or just some random person with a blog? And P is for purpose. Why does this information exist? Is it objective or is it trying to sell you something? This little framework is your secret weapon against bad info. So you've found some great sources. Awesome. But finding the good stuff is really only half the battle. You can have a mountain of amazing research, but if you can't weave it into your own writing to build a solid case, well, it's just a pile of facts. The real skill is integrating it. Let's look at how to do that. You've basically got 4 moves in your playbook here. You can use a direct quote, but use those sparingly, only when the original wording is just too perfect to change. You can paraphrase, which is just putting a complex idea into your own simpler words. You can summarize, to just grab the main idea without all the details. But the real magic, the pro-level move, is synthesis. That's when you take ideas from multiple sources and combine them to create a new insight. That's where you really start to shine. Okay, let's get down to the brass tacks, the writing itself. You've done the research, you've got your arguments lined up. So how do you make sure the actual words on the page are sharp and professional? It usually comes down to a few really simple rules that make a huge, huge difference. Oh man, this one is so common, but it's like a speed bump for your reader's brain. Look at that first example. It jumps from the present, launches, to the past, complemented. It's just confusing. The fix couldn't be easier. Just pick a tense and stick with it. Honestly, in most business writing, using the present tense is a safe bet. It keeps things feeling immediate and relevant. Here is a trick that will instantly make your writing more confident. We all use words like very, really, and quite when we talk, but in writing, they actually make you sound less sure of yourself. Check out the difference. Very challenging is, okay, what does that even mean? But saying it challenged our team's skills and took 3 months of intensive work, that's specific. It's strong. It paints a picture. So ditch the weak words and get specific. So, why are we talking about all this? Research, Sears, grammar? How does it all circle back to you right now? Well, every single one of these skills comes together in one of the most important documents you will ever write, your resume. Let's put these ideas to work. First things first, let's just do a little spring cleaning. If you have any of these on your resume, just hit the delete key. That references available upon request line, total waste of space. Of course they're available. An objective statement? So outdated. And seriously, unless you've been working for more than 10 years, keep it to one page. These little changes instantly make you look more modern and professional. Okay, this might be the single best piece of resume advice out there. Banish passive language. Never, ever start a bullet point with responsible for. It tells the reader what your job description was, not what you actually did. Instead, lead with a punchy action verb. Look at the energy here. You didn't just have responsibilities. You managed a team. You increased productivity. You developed a new system. That shows impact, and that's what gets you the interview. You know, this one word is really the heart of everything we've been talking about: evidence. It's the whole foundation. When you write increased productivity by 25% on your resume, that's evidence. When you cite a solid market report in a proposal, that's evidence. Every single claim you make has to be built on it. It's what separates a professional argument from just an opinion. And this is why it matters so much. When you send an email or turn in a report, you're not just speaking for yourself. Your writing becomes the voice of your team, maybe even your whole company. That's a huge responsibility, right? But it's also a massive opportunity to show how credible and sharp you are through clear, evidence-based communication. So let's bring it all home. We started with Sears, a company that was practically drowning in data but couldn't turn it into a clear strategy. We end here, looking at the words on your screen. The lesson is exactly the same. You can have all the research in the world, but if you can't communicate it clearly, it's all just noise. So I'll just leave you with this question. Think about the last important thing you wrote. That big email, your LinkedIn profile, your resume. Look at it again with fresh eyes. Is it clear? Is it backed up with evidence? Does it sound powerful? Basically, is your writing telling the story you want it to tell?